I think, I mean, I would love the panel to kind of chime in, but I think if one really looks back, it's almost like it's been ages since we have been living with COVID. Somewhere, I think people have mentally aged in trying to deal with this. I don't think anyone was ready to deal with zero revenue companies. And I think just the initial shock of what one does when a black swan of this extent happens. And I think a couple of things at our end. I think one thing we realize very upfront is that we don't have to plan for a short crisis, that it's going to be a kind of crisis for the long haul. So it would possibly mean that one would have to restructure the business fundamentally to kind of survive a crisis of this sort. And it would also require us to work in a completely virtual way to figure out how we need to reboot and start the business. So I remember the earlier days where we created, the typical war room, and it was cross functional. And, the amount of countless hours that went into really figuring out karenge kya. And I think every aspect of the business needed to be touched, from kind of putting down various scenarios and what we would do in every scenario. I think the second major thing that I remember in the early days was safety. People didn't know about the disease. Those were days when we had all not stepped out of our homes for 50 days, and we were asking our people to go and open up stores. And I mean, this whole concept of A team, B team, how do you really keep the best SOPs? What actually happens if someone contracts COVID? Because I think the responsibility of leadership is that you have to ensure that the people that you are expecting to go out there when you are sitting either at home or in the office are taking risks and putting themselves in the line of fire. So I think there was a whole set of things there, and I would love the panel also add on some that phase and how they handled it. And I think a large part of that is also the softer aspects, right, of would it take to charge up a team to go out there. And there were risks where you have 1,500 stores, you may have an incident in one store. So what does one do in those scenarios? And I think thereafter, I think as the economy has opened up, one thing has become very clear, that at least in the medium term, there are fundamental shifts. There are channel shifts happening. Channels which we thought were, very stable are looking shaky. And channels which were anyways doing well, like digital, have got accelerated. So I think whilst one has to kind of figure out how to survive in a 70 or 75% of last year world, and that's the current challenge. I think why that defensive, whilst you have to be defensive on one side on your cost structures, etc. I think the challenge is how do you to balance both the defensive restructuring that you need to do in the business, but at the same time the offensive mindset of saying, how do we make part of this an opportunity? Which new products do we bet on? Can we go after athleisure and comfort wear in a different way? Digital is no longer a good to have, it is core to the business. Today, many of our businesses are 40% online, and online has far away from the world of before where it was a sell and forget. So I think every 2-3 month period has been like a completely new saga with a very, very different set of questions and challenges. That's been something in a nutshell at our end. Would love some of the panelists to pick up on some of these themes and double click.
I think Kulin, I'll just come in. I think it's completely right. From our perspective, what we did was that we shelved the plan and we said let's live that every day, every week as it comes, because there was no surety on when stores will open. But I think the one thing we've realized is that all over the years, whatever investments we did in our people, the engagement, the communication, that was very, very key for people to understand that this was something we had to go through together. And we, from our perspective, we kept the organization. A lot of communication was happening. Almost we were doing weekly town halls with all our employees. We had a daily checklist where we were checking health and safety of our people, because we want to be sure that people are not infected, and in case we can provide them with some help, because that was very, very critical. The other part, I think what we've done is that because our supply chain was a little more agile, because we buy shorter lead time, we were able to restructure our entire product line, and I think that really, really helped us. So I think that's one more learning from us. While we had an agile supply chain, we need to make it much more agile going forward, and I think that's a big learning which I think all of us would have had, because the major part was against product, because the product suddenly was becoming irrelevant with season change and things, and especially with fast fashion, that was a big challenge from us. And I think that's where I think a lot of all the IT systems and technology that we invested over time did help. So we could remotely actually operate the entire company despite not coming to office. We could plan new product lines, we could get approvals, we could do everything sitting at home. But you're right, the biggest thing was how to ask your employees to go down and open stores when the head office was not open and majority of the people were not coming in, how to keep them motivated. But I think, unlike other times, I think it was like a mission mode for us. We all knew what the mission was, what is our goal. And I think people also pitched in and they believed. And I think you're right, today we are all at about 75, 70 odd % of business as usual. Online has definitely played a large impact. But what we've done a little bit differently is we've invested a large part into safety in the stores. As we speak, I think a lot of you would have seen the campaign that we recently launched, where we've invested into the store safety part with this new patented technology by an Indian scientist, which enables these stores to become much more safer. All our garments, we now UVC sanitize it, which was not being done earlier. A majority of the industry is still following steaming. We went ahead because for us, if our employees were sure of what they were doing and dealing with and coming to it could actually work for us, where they could communicate that to the customers also. So I think that really helped, and also it's given our people the confidence that we are just not saying them to go down and be in a store, but we are ready to pitch in with technology, with features, with elements which will ensure that they have safety. So I think that definitely helped. The other thing which I think we had to do was look at the overall structure of the organization, and we run multiple brands like you, Kulin, and I think over time what happens is there's always a flap that comes in. Every brand wants to be independent. Every brand needs the entire independent structures. And I think we looked at around that and what we could crash. The core of the brands we've kept still the same. But what we've done is as digital became much more, we could move few people out there. Rather than cutting jobs, we said, okay, can we re-engage these people into a new horizon of a new world, which is a digital world. And I think we also got time to upgrade their skill sets, because a lot of them were free currently. There's not much happening. So I think we used that time to upskill our people to the new world of digital. And I think those are a few things we've done differently. And I think we will see the results over the time. But you're right. This is going to be another year more of at least being in this COVID times. But as we speak, we operate 100% of our office as per whatever is available, splitting the teams into multiple offices, multiple teams. That also has given a lot of confidence to the front end, that it's just not them leading by the stores, that people at the office also there to support them all throughout the time.
Thanks, Vineet. I'll go next then. I think I'll try and keep the discussion towards people and culture and how the overall thing changed. I think for me, what strikes out, when I look back in this last 6 months, is the alternate position that we all in businesses landed up ourselves into. And what I mean by that is, I think as a company, we had a great last 10 years, and where we were always in this growth mindset. Fortunately, we never encountered a crisis on the business side, and that itself became a challenge, because we were never encountering like Kulin said, of suddenly business going down like this, and something as basic as health and safety being such a compromise and such a challenge. So everything became alternate. We in fashion business, for good or bad reasons, we have got very long product life cycle. We look at things 6-9 months ahead, and suddenly you have a world where you cannot plan for the next month, because you don't know what the business dynamics would be like. And then, you know, you have a team and a culture which is always positive, talking about growth, talking about camaraderie, talking about, you know, the culture of being together, and suddenly you're remotely spread out and not able to meet as well. So I think the alternate situation, I think the biggest challenge that came in, that everything in business just turned 180 degrees, and one had to deal with the everything being different. Um, and to deal with it, I think it has not been easy. If you look at the despondence setting in, the despair, even after, you know, now that things are getting into 6-8 months, the despondence, the despair, it's not easy to stay like this. I think people are now going through mental health issues as well. I don't think there is any solve that or any magic wand that one can discuss in a panel, but I think there are a few things that we have done very similar to what Vineet said, is about communication. I think communication is one of the key elements in crisis, is what I have learned, whether it is with your retail partners, whether it is with your suppliers, whether it is with your team, whether it is with your store teams who are having to really wade the entire challenge and go in and work every day, while some of us are still working from home. That's one. And I think one thing which has turned out, which is important, I think one thing that is consistently coming out is empathy in leadership. I think that element has been never so relevant. And I think all organizations which have a strong sense of empathy as a part of leadership and culture, I think are able to manage this better, and because, all of us are having to take decisions which we would have otherwise not taken, right? Some of them might be very tough decisions. And I think ability to get into somebody else's shoes and behave in that manner, that's one thing. And also having the ability to listen to people. A lot of times we in retail are used to putting these SOPs, right, which somebody sitting in the corporate office is making. With something as basic as health and safety, we can be making the best SOPs. If it is not being followed on ground for whatever reason on a minute by minute basis, then we are compromising and risking the team as well as our customers. So I think communication, empathy, and ability to listen from a people standpoint, to me, are coming out to be very, very important during this time.
I'll probably go in next and add to. So Abhishek actually mentioned a very relevant point on empathy. I think the next thing that came for us was in terms of openness, transparency, and that whole ability to listen. I think that was the most important thing when you look at people issues. So I think this was a situation that nobody could think of. No, you couldn't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think that whole idea in terms of being transparent, in terms of making people believe that we are in this together, and probably at some times we know as good as you. So it was there was nobody who could predict what's going to happen tomorrow, when other stores going to happen, what trading would you achieve once you open up. So I think that was important. And I think on the second aspect, everybody talks about digitization, I think we were at some stage of digitization, when we were looking at our interactions with the consumer. But I think what COVID has done is it has also, at least for when I look at Pepe, is that we have been able to digitize our interactions at the employer level. So that's something that we had probably only thought about in terms of the front-end employees. Now we've started talking and doing it even for the back-end HO employees. And the third level is also on the B2B partnerships. So if you look at it as in simple things like trade shows, they were always physical. Now we've gone up a step further and digitized those. So I think what has also happened is digitization has actually taken a whole leap forward, and it has cut across that single interaction between the company and the consumer. It has spread across all interactions that we have through the spectrum.
Kulin,
Yeah, we can. I think one of the other themes, guys, that of course we should talk about a little more is, it's the mantra right now. How does one go digital? Manish talked a bit about it. Just wondering if everyone can kind of open up the playbook on digital a bit, because it's the central theme. It is the core energy and velocity right now for most of our businesses. So, and I know everyone on the panel, there's a lot happening in all the companies involved when it comes to digital, and one can define it also in a reasonably broad sense or a narrow sense, but whichever are some of those key aspects of the playbook, would love again the panel talk about it a bit more, and obviously I'll also come in at the end.
Would Lavanya want to come in first?
Hi. Okay, so I can get started on this. Not that we're the best at it, but I'll give you my perspective of what happened at Nalli's. Taking off from what I've heard some of my other panelists mention, so very similar, right? When COVID first hit, of course, all of us were taken unawares. It's not something that you could have planned for or anticipated. And even when it first hit, I don't think that people, business people or otherwise, really understood the depth of it and how long it was going to last. I don't think many of us really thought that we'll be sitting here in November, and in this sort of an environment. A few things which has already been discussed. Of course, I think a lot of things happened. There were definitely phases. The initial phase was, I think, more of just managing, of just reacting to it, because it was a very rapidly unfolding crisis. What do you do in a zero revenue situation when your costs are still the cost of, like a 700 crore company or whatever it is? How do you just make payroll? How do you know when there's no end in sight and there's no way for you to predict, and the information keeps changing so rapidly and it's that ambiguous? How do you manage at the same time the fear mindset? Because I think a lot of the employees also come forward looking for some kind of leadership and some kind of support from those senior to them, to say that, look, it's going to be all right and we've got your safety in mind, and when you yourself are sort of figuring that out. So I think there was that aspect which was just trying to make sense and react to it. And then the next phase was really coming to the digital aspect of it. It was more of a similar sort of hyper focus, but the hyper focus was less from the standpoint of reactionary, more from the standpoint of, okay, in this situation, in these ambiguous times, there are certain core business principles. The company has to run, profits matter, cash flow matters, right? You just go straight to the P&L and you start looking at all of those elements there, and it brings in a certain razor focus. At the same time, you recognize, okay, we've been in this crisis 2-3 months, maybe a quarter. What are the big shifts that we are seeing? Stores may or may not open. If it opens, it's going to be a phased-wise open. Even when they open in a phased-wise manner, one incident can again sort of disrupt. It can disrupt everything. Either an employee or someone who's a customer has sort of contacted it. You can't have too much crowds in the stores. You've got to be very systematic about those aspects. Unpredictability exists even in the supply chain. So in that second phase, which was of us understanding, okay, there are known factors and then there are still some unknown variables. What we did as an organization was two things. All the people along the value chain, wherever we could digitize it. And I use that word in the very rudimentary manner. Whatever it was that we did physical, but we were no longer able to do that. And we work with suppliers of all sizes and of different degrees of sophistication. Even if it was just a thing of, everybody gets on a video call, or we just have a WhatsApp meeting, right? We started having some kind of system. Before this kind of a external shock event, most people knew that, okay, digital is the future, digital is the future. We've been saying it for the last 5 years. But no one really forced them to say, okay, in a crisis, now that the cash cow and now that the brick and mortar has been severely impacted, we have to look at all the different revenue streams and at least come up to baseline. So that prompted us to look at, okay, all of the people in the supply chain, how do we kind of digitize them? How do we kind of carry on business as usual? What about the senior members and people who are sort of working remotely? How do we do that? What about store level customer service? We still have our store, we still have the inventory, customers still have the demand, but we can't allow major sort of gathering points. Can we set up situations where we give each of them lighting equipment, and we educate the store level people to be able to set up video calls, so that there's we do a marketing strategy. Our consumers are aware that now you can do a video consultation. They call each of the individual stores, and then the stores are also set up because you do need a certain lighting. It's a very different way of sort of displaying the product to the consumer than how you would do in real life. So the second phase was really about in knowing what we know and knowing what is ambiguous. What are the aspects of our business that we really need to focus on for survival? We weren't even thinking about growth. We weren't thinking about future. It was just thinking about that future, which we keep saying that digital is the future. That future is today. So how do you actually grapple with it today? And so those aspects of it, from the from consumer standpoint, from a supply chain standpoint, from all of the people in the different value chain. So that's how we kind of managed it.
Lavanya, there's one thing that I wanted to check up with you, and I don't think you mentioned it specifically unless I have lost you there. Your ability to work with your designers and your craftsmen. I think we've spoken about it earlier in one of the other talks. Is that changed? I mean, that's an interesting part.
I'm not sure which aspect of it, but I'll see, and maybe this is what you're talking about.
The need for your buyers to go to that craftsman and buy it physically to what it is today.
See, that is procurement. The other is we have our own label where we design it as well. Typically, if you see the whole cycle of it, so you will have, your designers will come up with the plan, they'll do the shade cards, and they'll, match it and everything. But this is not a very sophisticated industry. And
I'm hurting you for a minute because this the repercussions of or whatever the impact of what you've seen, it's possibly been seen by the others on the panel also, because all of them have been working with an extended set of collaborators, so to say, because they also procure, they also sell, they get manufactured.
Right.
So it's quite interesting as to when you tell and where the others can come in, because we got a little bit of time, very little time, but this would be interesting.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we've got two aspects. One is the design aspect, one is the procurement aspect. And like I said, everything right now has been running virtually. With our designers, wherever possible, what we simply did was we got all of these shade card books. I literally have one here. And we bought a whole bunch of them and we dispatched it to every one of our master weaver who we were working with for designing the products. Whereas previously, physically, the designer would go and sit them and do the sampling. Now, all of this had to be done remotely. And then they would send the samples back, we'd look at it. A lot of issues, a lot of, ups and downs, because this is not a mode that they were used to, but we got used to doing that. On the procurement front, it's very straightforward. Once we know, look, these are the products, and it became much more dynamic. These are the products that we need. We can predict only for a week. We can predict maybe for a month, right? But at least for a week, for sure. For the next 4 weeks, to a certain degree. Based on that, we got all of our weavers literally on WhatsApp. And then they would start sending us their images and they say, look, this is what I want in this price range. This is what I have right now. This is what I can procure for you. It will take 4 weeks, 6 weeks. A whole ton of WhatsApp messages, extremely difficult for us to keep track of it. But that's the place where we are now. First, you get the solution. Once the solution is done and you found out, okay, this is what the stakeholders need, then you develop a scalable technology-based solution. So move out of WhatsApp, make it something that is more trackable so that you match it end to end. So all of these things were stuff that we were working on, but it has just become accelerated by the pandemic.
I think if I can come in, I think we all undermined how the small kiranas became digitally savvy through WhatsApp. And I think that's the power of WhatsApp that happened. I think if you look at during the pandemic lockdown, you were not starving for anything. Their local kirana guy just evolved and became digital. You just take a picture and send it to us. So actually, we start to look at fancier solutions and systems, and I think that has been the biggest learning. And I will tell you, while we're speaking about digital, and Kulin asked us, I think the basic thing which we all remembered over the years was catalogs. Right? We all left those catalogs because they were expensive to print. No one wanted to look at that. And suddenly catalog shopping everyone was doing this catalog shopping. And what was it happening through? WhatsApp, a simple WhatsApp being sent to a customer. We brought WhatsApp video shopping if the consumers wanted to see some product when the store started to open. And I think it's sometimes you just don't require a fancy system. It's only about innovating. And I think the simplest solutions come from our people down in the stores. They started doing it on WhatsApp, and I think a lot of retailers, we are all retailers here, we were using WhatsApp for communicating consumer offers and all, but we never thought it was possible to use it as shopping. But now, yes, obviously, Lavanya is right that over time you cannot have it left like this open. So obviously you will bring in something. So now, as we speak, and I'm sure Kulin will smile because we use Arvind as a partner, and we are going on social commerce through WhatsApp. And I think Arvind is helping us doing it. But that's the power. You saw the power there, and WhatsApp is something what WeChat is in China. And look at what they've done in China. They've just changed the entire ecosystem of buying. No one comes to shop so much as they go to WeChat and shop. And I think that's going to happen. And look at the strategic investment Facebook did with Reliance. It was because they knew that the consumers are going to be there with JioMart and all. And I think sometimes we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to just look at it and say that this is the best solution and copy it and make it work for your business and obviously tailored for your business. But that's what we've done also. We've used so much of WhatsApp that we've never used because we thought that communication cannot be controlled. That was our fear earlier. But the pandemic, we had no choice. At least there was communication with consumers and our employees. Right? We just moved there. And I think now, obviously, we're evolving and trying to make. The other part, I think, which from our perspective, which is very different to what Lavanya does, is our sourcing, where hand feel is so important because that's what you want to do. We work with very set of suppliers, few suppliers who've been working with Bestseller for years. So I think big thing was that we left a lot on the supplier because the ecosystem of trust and collaboration has been there for years. We don't do QC audits anymore. It's part of it. We don't do final sample audits anymore or collect the samples. So we've done also few things which I think we were not doing it just because we wanted to follow a process. And I think the pandemic just taught us that you can cut some flab, you can cut some days also, I think, in sourcing. You can become faster. End of the day, we were wanting to control everything of the entire value chain. And I think we suddenly realized we don't need to. Work can still happen. And I think almost everyone found out ways to work. No one was suffering so much, saying, yeah, I'm not able to connect to my employees or to. So I think what the pandemic has taught us is that digitization can be basic. And once you know and you've done the small proof of concept, then you can make it tailor-made to your own requirements. So that's what from our perspective.
If I could just add one small thing just for 5 seconds, I won't. So I'll show you an example of, I don't know if you all can see this phone here.
Yes.
This was the early days when it was literally sending to suppliers and saying, look, send me what you have in this price point, in this price range, and then, we would select it. Now from that, it's evolved. This happened probably within 3 days of like that initial lockdown lifting when manufacturers were allowed to sort of open up and, and business was getting conducted. And this didn't come from any big tech company. It came from a nimble, small scale business person who basically said somehow or the other, I need to manage my survival and the survival of my business. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp. I know that you can't travel. I know that I can't come there. I'll send it on WhatsApp. If you want to see any of these selected pieces, then we'll get on a video call. I'll open it up. I'll show it to you. I'll, discuss it with you. Once the proof of concept is done, this is when really the power of the organization can come in. And we say, okay, now the problem statement has been defined and we have found some problem. We found some solution, but it's not scalable. How do you do it in a manner where you're able to track it? How do you do it in a manner where it's scalable? How do you do it in a manner where you can, compartmentalize all of this and organize it? Maybe you need to build a tech layer on top of it. But the first always starts with this, somebody who is really, who's really quite nimble and agile will come up with some way. And then all we have to do as business leaders is really, work on top of that and make it scalable and make it robust.
Right.
Well, Lavanya just took away what I was trying to say, but let me just give my perspective on that. I think it's less, the point is not about technology and digitization that people are helter-skelter running after because COVID has forced them into. I think it is about speed, agility, and nimbleness, which is coming out to be key. An agile organization is able to react to things quicker and faster, and technology is just a means, right? And you will find the right technology, whether it is a enterprise based solution, a cloud based solution, or something as basic as having a chat platform, right? So I think it's the mindset of being agile and quick, which is very important. And the other piece, which is about adopting technology and using digitization to the fore, I think that's a journey. I mean, there might be converts who have started the journey now, but I can tell you from my experience that if you really want to use technology as a core of the organization, both customer facing and inside the business, then it needs to start. We have been very thankful that we've been into this journey a bit earlier in the game. But I think it's a journey. It's about converting and trying to solve for things in a scalable manner, and in a more systematic manner. So I'm sure a lot of businesses are now adopting it, but whether there will be quick wins, the quick wins will come from the agility part. But using technology as the core approach to business and using it for customer convenience, I think it's a journey that a lot of us probably had started. A lot of us are starting now, but it's clear that's going to be the future.
I think, Abhishek, you took my words on in terms of nimbleness. I think that's something that's the most important thing. I think nimbleness, and then importantly also in terms of out-of-box thinking. I think how we have been conditioned in terms of businesses and structures is that we've always thought, okay, if simple things like WhatsApp, as in I remember my store managers were doing it even in previous organizations 10 years back, but we were never thought of it that it's going to be a substantial part of business. So nobody took it up seriously. So it was happening at a small scale, but now you realize that suddenly it's contributing to 3, 4, 5% of your overall revenue. So I think that's where in terms of saying that I have a problem, can I think, because previously I was not thinking out of the box, that whole thought process was not getting promoted within organizations. I think that's again a big change that's happening now, whether you look at cost, you look at any operation, you look at any process, I think there is a lot of openness within organizations wherein people are saying, can we look at doing things differently? And then if you are able to if you are nimble, if you are able to action that fast and then make it scalable, I think that's the bigger difference that is coming across. And that's where I think, so to say, there are organizations which are able to take a lead in terms of even on current scenarios wherein market, when I look at it, we are not growing in terms of gaining additional customers, but probably what's also happening is that at some places we are seeing that we are able to gain market share within the limited consumer who's there. So I think those are things that are making a difference.
Let me just come in with some thoughts and then I'll take some of the questions because we don't have too much time. I think since people have talked enough about digitization, I wanted to bring the consumer digital angle of things. I think for a long time we've all been talking about omni-channel and how online is such an important part of our business. But I think what the pandemic has done is I think it has possibly pushed us all out 3 years and accelerated 3 years of where we would have ended up being had we gone business as usual. And I think the big paradigm change I'm seeing is that digital historically has always been a channel associated with, it's been a high discount, it's an add-on channel, and, it's just one of those 10-15% channels. And now I think with what has happened post-pandemic, I think it has become much more of a primary kind of part of your business. So I'm seeing some fundamental changes. One, of course, the way the online-offline world collaborate and work together is fundamentally changing. We are seeing those boundaries blur. People are coming together. A business which was always sell and forget is turning completely on end, right? I mean, the future of this business is that it's going to be like retail. It's going to be a direct business which you manage. Most likely the inventory will be something you control, the pricing will be something you control, the marketing on third party and your own sites will be something you control. So it's, I mean, that fundamental change where if you are moving from a wholesale mentality to a retail mentality on this channel, on this particular channel, means you are fundamentally needing to build a lot of muscle. And I think the trick is, how do you kind of start thinking about both your merchandise strategy and your direct retail strategy online differently? What kind of talent do you need? What are the processes you need? What is the cadence of this channel? Because it's completely different. It is not a seasonal autumn, winter, spring, summer. So I think that it's been kind of a shock where people have been kind of shaken to figure out how to do this fundamentally differently. And the other big paradigm shift I'm seeing is the store becoming digital. Whether we use fancy words like clienteling, etc. I mean, at the heights of the crisis, 45-50% of our revenue in stores was actually delivery of online orders, and it's still a very high number. And to make a store do WhatsApp, do online fulfillment of marketplaces, fulfillment of your own primary.com, it's a very different DNA. How do you make stores do this at scale? So I think the whole DNA of retail also has to dramatically change, along with the warehouse and the marketplace part of things. So in a nutshell, I think that as leadership, how do you ensure the right talent pool is brought together? How do you create these nimble teams? How do you create cross-functional teams? And how do you make digital not just another channel, but a channel which is core to your business model? And as Vineet was also saying, then build flexible supply chains. The online offering will change and evolve. We have seen certain categories like comfort wear and footwear grow 10x in this channel. So, I mean, it's a very different and fast evolving animal. And I think everyone is converging. So how do we quickly stay abreast and be nimble enough to win in this true omni-channel world? I think we were kidding ourselves when we called ourselves omni-channel before COVID, but this is a true omni-channel world, and a lot of rule books will need to be torn and rewritten if we want to win. So with that, let me see what questions I can pick up from the audience. The first question is around, the how do you balance the financial compulsions, and people talked about how difficult things were, and investment in people. I mean, is that a trade-off? Can one manage both? How do you balance them? So let me start by opening up that question to the panel.
I think it's a very, very tough trade-off. I think every company and every business will have to find their own balances. There's no rule book, and I think what I have seen is, and I think Manish and Abhishek used the word empathy, and I think I saw much more empathy in companies in India than I saw it across the globe, because here I think the first thing that it struck all of us was how to protect jobs. Unlike other parts of the world where the government was doling out money and protecting jobs, here our government was not doing anything. So it was left to corporates and companies like us to fend for our people. And I think also I will say people also understood and realized that they will have to support this tough time. And I think everyone went through that together. And I think good communication, transparency, a strong culture where people think they belong to the organization definitely helped. Yes, it has been a challenging time, and I can only talk about ourselves. I think the first 6 months was only surviving and ensuring that we are able to see the end of the tunnel and ensure that we have enough cash flow to keep paying our salaries. The rest, everything was deprioritized from our perspective. And obviously, there were some suppliers that we have to support because we work with very few suppliers, and their entire supply chain also needs to be running because they also employ a large amount of people. Good part is we are part of a very large global organization who has similar values, and I think that helped us a lot. But the first priority was our people, and then was ensuring to look at how to cut and what to cut. And we were ruthless in few of the cuts, which we've never done. I think Abhishek said that in last few years, we've never thought about such situations. But we were very ruthless in few of the things. And I think the one thing which we all thought was that during the lockdown, we are going to lose money. How do we bounce back when lockdown opens? How do we ensure that at least when everything starts to get a bit normal, like the of 2, 3, and 4, at least on those months we don't lose cash. And I think that became the most important part. We knew we lose cash. There was no choice not to lose cash. So I think Kulin is also smiling on that one. But that was the only way we could survive out of it. If anyone thought that we'll come out of this without not burning cash, it was not possible. Then we had to shut half the company or lay off 80% of our people. So I think we lost money, but I think on the overall years that people have put in, I think it was important to protect jobs, and that's what we did. We did go through some cuts, but we did it only when things started to open and people could get other opportunities in the market. And we allowed people, and I think we've tried our best to do, and I think that's what I've seen in the entire industry and across industries, that first thing we did was to protect our people. I don't know if something else.
Kulin, can I come in, because we've got not too
Yes,
much of
please.
time. I've got one question for you, Kulin, which possibly you could answer for the others also. While it's very clear that everybody is going to save costs and everybody is trying to see a good balance between having people with us, at the same time trying to save costs, what would be your advice to employees in companies? Because I think there's a lot of role to be played by the people who are working in the businesses. Is there any advice that you would give to employees? Because one can tell employers, "Sabko paisa de do," but we know we can't. So what would be the advice to employees? If there is an individual who is listening to this, what would you tell him?
See, I think when black swans like this happen, all the rules have to be kind of rewritten. And I think we are at a point where, one has to get through this, and this too shall pass. And I think this is a unique time for both companies and professionals to become better and stronger. Because I've seen that the most time you grow is when you are facing challenges. And I don't think in our lifetimes we are going to face a challenge like we are facing today. And, as a culture, I mean, the strength of a culture is if you can kind of have a sense of shared vision and shared sacrifice and shared resilience. And I think these are times when you will have to tap into that, because this is not easy. I mean, anyone who is having to take any sort of sacrifice, right? It is a personal sacrifice. I mean, you can sugarcoat it, you can call it a fancy word, but finally it is difficult. It's a hurt for you, your family, for everybody involved. But the only thing that gets you through is the belief that A, this is going to make you stronger, and B, it is going to pass. And finally, yes, the company will be fair and share the rewards with you. So whoever gets through this time is going to end up being a richer professional. And I mean, the company should also hopefully come out stronger if you get through this phase. So I think there's no easy thing here. I mean, it's a tough thing everyone is going through. Some of the words used earlier by Abhishek and all, despondency. I mean, there are days you wake up saying, yaar, ye kya hum kar rahe hai? Kitna aur kar sakte hai, right? And finally, everyone has to, as an individual, tap into that resilience, faith, and belief that this too shall pass.
There was also this question from the audience, because we've got two questions to complete. One is for Lavanya specifically, and the other question one of you can answer. And this is allied to what was asked earlier to Kulin. How do you handle people who are not willing to change? Like Kulin, you're saying we should change, right? This needs change. If there are people who don't want to change, then what do you do?
Well, I'll take that. I mean, I guess even from any individual's perspective, people have now become far more open in their mindset. They know the reality. It's not, sometimes when in the previous times when something bad would happen to one, we would say that why did it happen to me? Why me? Thankfully, in COVID, at least one thing that we can't say is why me or why us as an individual. It's the entire world, right? And I think there is nobody who is living in very few people who are living in denial, to be honest, on that front. And I think if there are people might go through certain mental health issues. I think and we need to support that as leaders. I think it's very important to open channels of communication during this time more than ever. Yeah, and in some cases even professional help, and one needs to facilitate that. but I think constant communication, and nobody is living. I don't think people are saying that, I will be the way I was, whether it is to be the way I was leading my life or the way I was working. And I think constant communication, I think that is very, very important. And one last point I would like to say on this front is, what do you do with people is also show vulnerability. Initially, I mean, we all were saying, okay, this, we are in it together is the initial side, and then putting this strong face. But I think it's important for all of us to show vulnerability with our people and our peers. It is a challenge for everyone, and then people start relating to it, and things become far more credible, a communication, and a warmer and informal communication, than standing on a high ground and delivering a motivational speech when you know that the world is in a huge crisis.
Mark, can I add to this?
I think I'll go to Lavanya, because we already got a couple of things. Lavanya, the question that I think for most people, it's what's happened to Chennai and how things are when you have too many customers inside. So somebody's asked that question about what did you exactly do when there were lots of customers visiting the store? If it happens that there are too many customers coming, would you stop them from coming in, or how do you manage it?
I wish I had that problem every day, but no. Long story short, the reality is, and I know that there's a few WhatsApps that are going around. The reality is that most stores, including us, it's not back to pre-COVID levels, right? And it's not meant to be packed like sardines. So both from an employee standpoint, the headcount is actually only what we require. And from a customer standpoint, see, initially we could keep all of the, like placements to say you stand here and move here and all of that. But ultimately, especially in our business, sari shopping, no one's going to follow that. So what we do is we give them very common sense advice. We've trained up the senior people in our stores to say, look, this is all you need to do. Just make sure that families are apart from each other, right? So that no groups of people commingle. If someone comes in without a mask, we just buy a batch of like free masks and we say just give it to them. If they want the same mask that they worn and then they've gone to like 10 other stores, just ask them to change it. A lot of people are unaware and then they wear it below their nose. So these are all things, symbolic or not. I won't go into the whole details of like what the WHO and everything says, but right now I think we just have to go on the basis of what the experts say, which is that everyone has masks. Things are going to be, it's going to be a lot difficult for the virus to spread. If people socially distance as much as possible, it's going to be much more difficult. Air conditioning as much as possible, no. And then if you've got windows or anything in your store, open it, air it out and have fans. So that honestly is the most I think that anyone can do. Not face the situation where crowds have surpassed something where, people actually have to stand shoulder to shoulder. But if that happens, and we've done it, we let them in batches. And you see this abroad as well. This is the capacity, 400 people have gone in, 200 people have gone in, 40 people have gone in. Till a group of 5 come out, we can't let the other go in and keep them comfortable outside.
I think we've run out of time.
And people get it, people understand it.
Vinith had something to say. Very quickly, Vinith, and then we'll have to thank everybody.
I think I have only one thing to say, which I think Abhishek said it very politely, but there must be a lot of employees that are listening. The only constant in this world is change, and those who don't change get changed. So I think it is a message which Abhishek very politely gave. I thought it is important because it's also our job to tell these people what is right for them to do. It is a difficult world out here, and you have a job and your company is willing to keep you. It's better that you find ways and means to adapt to that change. Otherwise, it will get changed. I think Kulin also said, we moved people to the internet world, digital commerce, right? They had to acquire new talent. If they said that we'll keep doing what we were doing, obviously someone else has to be hired then to do that job. So I think it's important for individuals to also understand and go through that journey and enjoy the journey. It's a tough journey for sure, all of us have, but I hope we all enjoy it.
Thank you, Vinith. I think that was a very good message. That was a message that was very essential, because employees also have to know that you can't take it for granted. None of us can. End of the day, everybody is answerable to what he's supposed to deliver. So thank you very much, Kulin. Any last, and then we can wind up, say thanks.
No, thank you, everyone. We missed Biju. but
Yeah.
we were able to all get together and make the conversation flow reasonably well. So thanks a lot to the panel for taking out time. I hope the audience found it meaningful and useful. So thanks to everyone once
Thanks,
again.
Kulin.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kumar. See you
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Perfect.